I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Legal and Finance Committee of Rapid City, South Dakota for March 16th, 2022 at 12:30 p.m. First up is roll call and determination of quorum.
Drew.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Weifenbach. Here. Salomon. Here. Evans. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Lehman, a reluctant second by Mr. Evans. All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? The agenda is adopted. Now it's time for general public comment, a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have no slips, but I'd like to take a point of personal privilege here and invite the members present. The Human Relations Commission is going to take a excursion of sorts to the Pine Ridge Reservation. You are all invited to go. It is April 7th. From what I can tell, a lot of the members of the council have not been to the reservation, and it's a 90-mile trip basically, and you will meet with important leaders during that particular trip to Pine Ridge. So that's basically it. I can fill you in on the rest. You'll get invitations, but that's April 7th if you want to put that on your calendars. I think it'd be a good exercise for anybody that can attend. Okay, now we go on to consent items 1 through 14. Public comment is open. It's now closed. And now we're going to go through this list like I saw John Roberts do it yesterday. So we've got to do one thing first. Approve the minutes for March 2nd, 2022.
Move approval.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, so we're going to go to the police department. Hello, Chief Hedrick. Would you like to speak about your item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the 4th year that the RCPD will be applying for this grant in particular. So we're pretty familiar with it. There is no funding match required from the city, and what the grant will do, it'll allow us to continue support for our quality of life unit by providing funding for a part-time outreach specialist, an individual we've had working with us in that role. And it'll also support our youth outreach team as our funding for our family navigator position. I know Mr. Salomon probably is going to ask about the strings that are attached. So really, like I said, there's no funding match from the city. There are some minimal requirements, and they have to do with reporting. So quarterly, we have to report on the number of clients served and delivery of our services by the quality of life unit and youth outreach team. So we do have to report out quarterly on who we're serving and why, but that's something we would track anyways. That's data we keep. So really, it's not a lot of extra work on our part. We have folks that monitor that regularly. So that's kind of it.
I see that Jason would like to follow up with you. Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to our police chief? Thank you, Chief. Thanks for proactively answering one of the questions I always ask. Speaking of the quality of life unit and youth outreach, can you talk to us about, is that bearing fruit? Are we seeing results from that's worthy of investment and perhaps more investment down the road?
Yeah, so I think we got a lot of good things going with both our youth outreach team and our quality of life unit. And we've been able to essentially work on some of our high call for service type folks, and whether it's whether youth that we're encountering regularly for lower level things, or whether it's some of the folks we encounter out on the streets dealing with alcohol or substance use or mental health issues. Both of these units are set to address those type of populations. So whether it's reaching out to youth that we're frequently encountering and trying to figure out what we can do differently. How can we provide resources and support to the family so that we essentially prevent a call from service happening in the future. And we've had some really good success stories with some of the kiddos that we've been working with. If you talk about dealing with a certain juvenile weekly, that's kind of a big deal. That's a lot of police encounter. But now getting them connected with services, getting their family connected with services, and now we're no longer dealing with that individual. That's a huge step in the right direction and taking them off of a very negative path. So, our youth outreach team is doing that, working with our local service providers. Same thing with our quality of life unit. They have many success stories where they've taken folks and worked with them and got them connected with resources and services, and now we no longer deal with them daily, which is a big deal. So I would say yes, I do think there is room for expansion, but I think there's more room for some of our local service providers to connect even closer with us and to get, we're working on getting them more involved to help us, because it can't just always be law enforcement at the intervention point by ourselves. We need to bring in some of the service providers with us. So super long answer, but hopefully that helps to paint a little bit of the picture of what these two entities are doing. And receiving grant funding to help with these positions is, I feel like it's responsible and it's a good thing.
Do you think that, say, the quality of life unit and having them, a lot of its focus is downtown, do you think that serves as a deterrent at all?
Well, I think if we're taking an individual that wants to move out of that lifestyle and helping them get connected with the services that can help them, essentially, yeah, we're helping folks move to a different place in life, and thereby reducing calls for service and reducing issues that are occurring, whether it's downtown or the bike path or wherever. I'm hoping at the upcoming April council meeting, I'd like to invite Journey On and the fire chief for us to come and just give a brief update on how that is going. And I hope that'll also kind of show some of the work that's being done. They're able to help us in ways that we wouldn't be able to address our homeless population by ourselves. I don't know how much you want me to keep going, but I'd like that group. I'd like Journey On and us to just give a little update to the council on how things are going there. As of Monday, Journey On has helped handle over 900 calls for service that would have been handled by either a police officer or an EMT since mid-December. That's a big deal. Yeah. And they're able to handle calls differently than we would. For example, we might just show up and transport somebody to detox or wherever. They're able to do the follow-up after the fact, make sure that the individual they transported is getting to their meeting the next day and providing that aftercare and connecting them with resources that, our folks just wouldn't have time to do. So I believe we have that on track for an update, the first council meeting in April.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Impressive. I see no other lights or questions. So we'll move on to the fire department. I see Chief Culberson is here. Do you have any remarks you'd like to make in 3 or 4?
The first one's just a quick change order. Wanted to put some different drains in that wildland apparatus. So during cold weather months, we can drain down the piping so it doesn't freeze. It's $1,300. The next one is for a grant from the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant for $60,000 for some training. And there is a match, but that's sending our folks to that class. And no other federal requirements outside of that. So.
I see no questions here. I have a question. Okay, go ahead. Chair recognizes Bill Evans.
I'm just curious, why are we purchasing this from Houston Galveston Regional Planning?
It's a buying group. HGAC is a buying group that we've used in the past. to cooperatively purchase. So they go out and do all the bidding, and we're able to purchase from them. We use several different buying groups to do that. Saves us significant time and quite often a significant amount of money versus going out for bid.
All right. Thank you, Chief Culberson. We'll go to the Finance Department now with Tracy. Anything you feel like that you'd like to give us more information on today?
Not too much. The first item, number 5, is just standard for a new volunteer. The January general fund cash report, we're sitting $23.6 million total in cash. There is $10.7 million of undesignated cash available. The next item is our annual agreement with Pennington County for them to handle any elections for us for the year of 2022. Number 8 is an assessment roll for some nuisances. 9 is the annual allocation from the Rapid City Arts Council. They gave their recommendations as to the groups that they would like the money to go to. And then 10 is a resolution for surplus property, some for parks and some for solid waste.
Okay, do I have a light? Yeah, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to Ms. Davis? So, first of all, on number 9, and pardon me if you don't know the answer to this, I should have prepped you ahead of time, but are there any requirements for those who are applying for the award? Do they have to be, can it be anybody that applies for this? Does it have to be a nonprofit? Does it have to be a pre-approved arts or humanities organization? I'm just trying to...
I have not seen their application. I do know that the city has requirements. You'll see Menalusa Historical Association and Pioneer Museum. That is one of the groups that is required to receive money each year. So the Rapid City Arts Council does have to include them in their awards.
So
I can certainly find out some more information.
my question is whether if an organization has I guess I'm kind of looking at the list here, and there's like the chorus and the orchestra, the things you would expect, and then but if you have a kind of a nonprofit organization that has performance space or something like that, are you is that
allowed to
do that? Is that the same category? I guess I'm not sure, and I know Darla Drew was part of this for a while. She might be able to answer too, but it was just a question I had.
Yeah, I don't know the full details of it. I'm not sure exactly how their application process works, but I can certainly ask them and find out for sure for Monday evening.
Which question are you asking?
So,
'Cause-
Darla, maybe Bill obviously was with the orchestra, so
No, but I was in on looking at the applications. I was with the Allied Arts Fund when we did it. I was also at the Rapid City Arts Council board when we made some of those changes, so, yeah.
So I would just wonder if any organization can apply or if there are restrictions on who can apply.
I don't think there's any
Related to
restrictions
arts.
except that it be
It looks like
arts-oriented.
Mr. Evans might want to chime in.
Excuse me, but I want to talk about Menalusa in just a second.
Oh, yeah.
Because I do know about that one. That one used to be funded by the machines that they'd put a quarter in, and you could look around from Dinosaur Hill,
Yeah.
up there in Dinosaur Park. They'd get about $2,000 a year from that. And we at the Allied Arts started thinking, well, this doesn't really seem to fit with a lot of our mission. They came in and said that they'd been part of that, along with, the other things that need to be funded from that particular amount of money every year. So we couldn't just say, oh, you're going to kick you out. We said for a while, we're just not going to fund you anymore. And they said, no, it's by ordinance, so they get that money, or usually whatever they ask for. Are you familiar with the Menalusa Fund?
Yeah. I just want to make sure. I still have the floor.
Go ahead.
Can I have Bill? He looks like he wants to chime in on
Sure.
my deal. I
Let's
just
do
wanna
it.
make sure.
I guess, well, Darla and I actually met a few weeks ago to go over the forms that you use to apply as a performing group, and we just took several hours going through the whole thing with some people that do it, and have to do it every year. But as you look at the list, you see that there are 5 groups that are in blue. And 4 of them are performing groups, and 1 is the Minnelusa Historical Group. Well, some 80 years ago or so, the city council sitting here passed an ordinance, and they said, you will fund a band, you will fund an orchestra, you will fund a choir, you will fund a marching band, which at the time was the Ranger Band for the Range Days Rodeo, to go around and advertise it all over the state, and you will fund a historical society. Now, it got to the point that back, and I remember this because I was involved in it with Mayor LaCroix, the way the law was written, it said the mayor will hire a conductor, the mayor will hire a first violinist, the mayor will hire, and all of these groups, so he was going to hire all the clarinets in the band, and he was going to hire all the kids in the marching band, and they said that this is crazy. And so they did an MOU, and they enlisted, and I think the first thing was through Allied Arts, when you were involved with that, and since these were the statute-funded cultural groups, they used the Allied Arts as the distribution vehicle, which, as you know, many years later went through, what was it? How did we change that?
We changed the organization handling the money and distributing the money to the Rapid City Arts Council, which
Right.
was originally by ordinance supposed to be the designee for that.
Yeah, and the new MOU then went to the Rapid City Arts Council. So now it's just a matter of, I think the mayor will look at this, how much am I going to give to the band, how much am I going to give to this, and then it's a pass-through thing who basically writes a check. And it had to do with not putting employees on the city payroll and having to do all the other stuff because it involves a lot of temporary things. Now, I've actually sometimes discussed maybe it should go through rec in some of these activities and be done differently. But right now, that's how we're doing it, and that's the reason these are in there.
I think it's more of a curiosity of who can apply and to make sure that if it's open to a lot more organizations, maybe they ought to know about it.
Any of those black groups or other people that apply for these things, independent of those 5 statute-driven ones, so.
That's it. That's all I have for that item.
I had just a little bit more to say to you. I think maybe 2 new organizations have been added this year. Maybe we did Cave Collective last year, but they're getting funded this year, and then also Backroom Productions is doing an effort to do more with authors, local authors in the area. So sometimes the funded organizations change as to, depending on what groups they're reaching and what they're doing. And as long as we're looking at this, and we have $10 million in undesignated cash, I would really like to see this amount go up, because every time we invest in the arts, we get a big bang for our buck. I'd like to see at least, it's $100,000 right now. It hasn't changed for probably 20 years, and I'd like to see that double to $200,000. I don't know how to go about getting that request to whom?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
go
had
ahead.
one item, but I was
I'm
going to pull a
sorry.
second item, but it was the same thing. I do think that when we're looking at undesignated cash, we have a committee with the council working to look at how we best invest in that. One of the items we've talked about is more proactive development and those sorts of things. So I think we have these multiple committees looking at how we're going to use that, bring it to the whole council to make sure that we're all in agreement with how that might go. But obviously, the over 10 million in undesignated cash, we want to have a plan, a really good plan for that. How do we best invest to that impacts the entire community? So I think we'll have some things in the coming months. President Lehman might have more to add to that, but it's a good point to bring up. And I did want to say we are working towards a plan so that we do it the right way.
Awesome. Okay, we've got people want to get in on this discussion. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been on and off the council probably a period of 10 years. We've had the conversations about the marching bands and stuff like that, and if you want to get people riled up in the community, just tell them you're not going to fund that. Through the years, I've made mention to the fact that, Rapid City is a tourist town. you know, some of the arts in the city, as you grow in the city, you become more aware of what's available in the city, and understanding that it's hard to totally fund those. I think it's appropriate at some point, I've made the comments on several occasions, to try to get the arts community behind looking at some of these taxes, like is familiar of the B&B tax part that's used to completely fund the Civic Center and the Visitors Bureau, which, you know, without some of these other things, without some of the performing arts and some of the art things that happens in our community, some of the things we put in our parks, some of these things, without those, it makes Rapid City a lot less desirable place to be. Yet, they're not getting any of those funds. They're scrapping over the smaller portion of the funds that are available. We have these conversations, people get left out in the cold. I think at some point, there's no doubt in my mind that if we could maybe get a few people from the council and the arts community to look at the funding portion of it, and if there's a way that we can do it that maybe is indirectly funded, like the same way we fund the Civic Center, they get $4 or $5 million a year. I think Visit Rapid City gets over $1 million, and we're funding one of the biggest draws of our community to the tune of $100,000 on the backs of the taxpayers. So if there's a way going on in the future, Madam Chair, and I know you're passionate about this, is that we could start looking down that road to say what makes more sense. Do we need to take some legislation to the state to provide? You know, you go to other communities, like I'm going to be going to Vegas over the weekend, and my hotel's like $40, but the bill's going to be like $140 a night. Things like that, because there's an added value to what the performing arts and the arts in the community bring to our community. I had a couple people here from California last week. What did they want to do? They wanted to look at all the different art stuff in our community. And so I had to drag them around. Didn't have to, but I did. Drag them around to show them all the different stuff, and they were pleasantly pleased with what was available, especially when we're looking at doing it with the shoestring that we do. So I guess there's kudos out to the arts community and the people in the community that do that. But I think the conversation needs to be widened and look at, you know, these are real things that bring people to our community, and if there's a way that we can fund them through those same people that come here to view them, that's a conversation we need to have. I think that we got a council that could handle that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Bill Evans. Bill, did you have more to say, or did you just not take yourself out? You're done?
Yes, I do want to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Just for point of, so you know what's going on, how this works. For instance, some of the groups, that is their entire budget for the season. Municipal band, ranger band. They provide 8 or 9 concerts in the park, and hopefully we'll be involved in the kickoff of the flood thing on June 8th again, because luckily it falls on our concert night anyhow, so it's going to be convenient. Other groups use this as seed money to get going, like the Choral Union and the Symphony Orchestra. Now, point of comparison, and I've been doing a lot of comparison with other city budgets and how they lay it out as presented. Rapid City Municipal Band, I think last year we were funded at $14,000. The same year, Sioux Falls City Band was funded at $180,000. The Black Hills Symphony uses this as seed money to raise their money. The budget's around $200,000. The South Dakota Symphony in Sioux Falls is $2.4 million. So this is a lot of bang for the buck. Okay, I just want to point that out. Thanks.
I guess maybe Tracy can answer a question for me. With the B&B tax, that's kind of, that's a state issue, isn't it? Not a city choice?
So collecting of it is a state issue. How we divide out those funds is our own issue. So 75% of that goes to the monument to run that facility, 25% goes to Visit Rapid City.
Interesting. Okay. We've got a city attorney chiming in here. Joel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are some restrictions in state law on how those funds can be spent. I would have to look at that. I'm not sure it would prohibit it or not, but it is somewhat limited, which is why we do give it to the Civic Center and Visit Rapid City, because those are 2 of the allowable expenses.
Well, maybe I'd like to visit with you about, you know, what those expenses might broaden to be, as Mr. Weifenbach suggested. And then also, as we go forward with this, and Jason mentioned a committee that he was working with that will look at that extra, or not extra, the undesignated $10 million. I would hope that an expansion of the money allocated to the arts in Rapid City would be included there, because it's been a long time coming. And yes, as you said, Ron, it adds a lot to the tourism in the city. We do get a lot of bang for our buck, so it's time to probably revisit that. All right, is that it for you, Tracy?
Yes, it is.
Anybody else? No? Okay, we're going to move on to legal and finance. Oh, gee, that's us. Approve resolution number 2022, a resolution declaring miscellaneous personal property surplus. I have no lights on that. Go to Parks and Rec. Jeff, if you have anything to say, Director Biegler.
This is just a standard use agreement for one of the youth baseball groups that operates their organization at one of our, or at many of our city facilities, so it's a standard use agreement.
Thank you. Community development, anything for Michelle? I think we have a typo here. It says VDBG, and I thought, oh my gosh, is that something new? But that, I know, right? I didn't know what that was. I think it's just a typo, but if you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with you, that'd be great.
Of course. You're correct. That is a typo. It should be corrected on the most recently posted agenda. But both of these items, number 12 and 13, are CDBG. Number 12 is seeking approval for the final funding recommendations for 2022. If you'll remember, there were organizations previously approved, BMS in the amount of $55,337, and WAVE in the amount of $51,250. This particular agenda is seeking approval of $200,000 for common bond communities. Number 13 is seeking approval of the annual action plan. This is a plan that we put together every year, and it coordinates with our 5-year strategic plan. This is the final plan of our current strategic plan, and next year will be a new 5-year plan along with a annual action plan at the same time.
I see no lights, so we'll go on. Let's see, Public Works is up next. Dale, Tech, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The item before you is an agreement between the City of Rapid City and AFSCME Local 1031 for wage adjustments for our solid waste, as well as a number of airport positions. I guess I'd like to thank all the council for participating in the last couple of weeks of meeting with solid waste staff to understand the issues we're having out there in hiring and retaining people. This is a group effort, certainly between Public Works, Human Resources, City Attorney's Office, and obviously the union to try to address the starting wages and wages of employees out at solid waste, so we can, first of all, get to near fully staffed so we can provide the service that we need to for this community. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Dale, Director Tech, excuse me, I'd like to say thank you for your work on this. I have had no questions from any of the constituents in my ward on this issue, which kind of surprised me. I thought it'd be a little bit more contentious, but I think it's been handled well enough where people are kind of understanding that this is the way things are these days. Is things get departments can be short-staffed, and then there has to be solutions, sometimes drastic ones. Jason Solomon.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for your words. I agree with that. Obviously, we have great folks working for the city, and we want to recruit great folks to work for the city. And it's important, I've said this at multiple meetings before, but I think this shows why it's really important that every 2 or 3 years, any employer, but especially the city, should do a compensation review to make sure that we're competitive on our wages so that we can retain our talented employees and recruit the best to Rapid City. That's the best bang for the taxpayer buck, is to retain really good employees. And so by doing a compensation review on a regular basis, I think that would really help us. I'm glad, though, that we had the agility to jump on this particular issue right now. Unfortunately, we had to wait till there was an issue in order to do something about it, which is too bad, but I'm glad that we did. And hopefully we're able to look at, you know, all these key positions within our city to make sure that we're paying our folks competitively, and that we build a culture that people want to work in and thrive. So I'm happy to support this. I think it's a good move. I think this is a great example of people working together to tackle an issue so that we can best serve the customers of our city, which is our citizens. And so with that, I will yield. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I echo everybody's thoughts, and I just, for the sake of my colleagues and the people listening out there, that this is what I consider a low-hanging fruit to looking at opportunity at the landfill and some other departments within the city, but mainly focused right now on the landfill with, we've been through some different arenas as the landfill evolves, as our community evolves and grows. It's filling up a lot quicker. Some of the equipment that we have is wearing out a lot faster. So there will be, I'm sure, other things coming forward in the future. I noticed we had some fee increases, and we've yet to see where those are going to end up, but that was also looking at, it was an overall picture. It wasn't just a picture of just, you know, throwing something at this approach. It's an overall picture. We looked at changing services and stuff like that. So as far as my colleagues are going to be concerned, I hope you give us the time to support and review and see what they're up against out there, and some of the things that might come through that might not be real popular, but in the end, they need to be done. You know, and so we're trying to, the landfill's trying to, you know, contain themselves with the environment they're in. They've got equipment that's being wore out. It's hard to get new equipment, so they're having to lease some equipment. They're going to have to replace the equipment. They got to work on the equipment. There's options that they're looking to streamline different things, you know, along the lines of waste that hits the landfill. So as these things come forward, I think you'll see that this one was the most obvious one and the easiest one for the council to take action on right away to try to help what's going on at the landfill from what they're seeing out there. And so I'll just take the opportunity to also give a shout out to those guys that have been working a lot. They've been working really hard trying to fill in the gaps of having shortages. I think the ship is going to turn in that area, but that doesn't address everything. So thank you, and I appreciate the support going forward.
All right, that brings us to the end of the consent calendar. However, I guess I didn't know how this was handled in other situations. I would like to pull an item for Monday night. So I would like to get a motion to, for consent of the entire consent calendar 1 through 14, with the exception of 9.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And so I guess 9 will go on the agenda for... Yeah, I don't want it on consent. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the consent.
Don't we need to approve it?
We have to at least send it without recommendation.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of what I was looking for. Okay, so I need a motion on number 9.
To approve without recommendation?
Okay, we're sending number 9 to council without recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 9 goes to council without recommendation. Thank you for clearing that up with me. Let's go to now the non-consent items. Public comment is open. Public comment is now closed. Finance Department.
This is second reading of the first supplemental appropriation ordinance for 2022. There are no changes from first reading.
Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Lehman to approve, second by Weifenbach. All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to keep you here just 1 minute. Does anybody here on the council have anything they would like to add? I went and talked about, the thing on April 7th for a committee that I'm with. Maybe there's a committee that you're with that you would like to mention, or an event you went to this week that was of particular importance. I hope somebody did something. Looks like Ron's trying to.
I do have one question for either legal or finance or somebody, because I'm on several of these boards, like 12 or something, and a lot of these managers, these directors that they hire, like for the Journey, the Arts, Meadowlewis, you know, it's hard to get quality people to run these important organizations on a very limited offering for their salary, okay? And that's kind of determined by their boards and how they, how much money they have to work with when their fundraising is done and everything happens. But I was curious, is there any way that as a benefit we could include for some of these managers a package that might include some benefits from the city, say insurance or something, as part of their benefit package in order to attract a higher caliber of person that might want to stay here a while?
Amen.
Because, you know, say running one of these senior citizen center, $35,000 a year, and if you understand the scope of like the Canyon Lake Center, that's huge. And you know, and I'm looking at people that are paid 3 times that, frankly, that don't work as hard. And so I'm just wondering if that could ever be an option, and I don't know who could even answer that, but I think it needs to be discussed. That's the reason I brought it.
I'm glad you brought it up. It'll be part of the record. Chair recognizes Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think you have alluded to this on several occasions, and at some point I'd be willing to entertain some sort of shifting of our resources to maybe find someone that could help write grants for some of these places that they're so small, they don't have that expertise. I think Michelle and the fire department and the police department can attest to the fact that these can get very detailed, very time-consuming, and then you get into expertise of that grant writing thing. I don't want it to be a neutral, cost-neutral type thing, but I would be willing to entertain, you know, looking at that possibility, because as we grow, like I mentioned before, there's a different flavor in the community right now for a lot of different people, and it's an awesome opportunity. And if we can synergize off that and take some of our people and shift the assets around and be able to utilize those in other arenas where they can help get some of that grant money that's available out there for some of these projects, then I think we should look at the possibilities of doing that. So that'd be my 2 cents worth, whatever. Thank you.
Maybe a city grant writer, even part-time.
Something like that, but something that would be, I think they would have to be something that was dedicated and it was actually a good position, but it could be revenue neutral by moving our assets around. So, thank you.
Really like that idea. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we wrap up, I guess I would add, Visit Rapid City selected a new president and CEO, and Brooke Kaufman from Casper, Wyoming. I had the opportunity to be a part of that process, and she's going to be a great addition to the team, and I look forward to seeing what they do to make Rapid City even more attractive place to visit. So thank you.
We've had some pretty good luck with them Wyomingians.
Well, thank you for the last part of this discussion, because I think we never leave time for us to talk about some of the things we do in this city. Everybody's on multiple committees and commissions and things like that, and sometimes I think we have to take a minute and just discuss what we've learned in the community for the last couple weeks. So thank you for your time. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved by Lehman, second by Weifenbach. All in favor? We're adjourned.
Good call.
Yeah.